now on sustainability in the asbestos industry. So what did I get to do? Well, was I going to do a doom and gloom presentation to go through and try and give you an update of where we are at with everything, reducing fee rates in the industry? Anyone who's been involved in Dutch auctions or Race to the Bottom, we had an amazing talk the other year from Gary on that, so I'm not doing that. From the engagement discussions we've just been talking about, long hours on site, many more site visits. Do I talk about that? Increasing staff costs. Well, we've all alluded to that. We're all facing that, and it's all a problem. The inflated opinion of individuals' worth. We've all got to be project managers, haven't we? And what about the dreadful scenario when we do have mothballed facilities? This is a view that none of us like, and I'm afraid if I switch off my background at the minute, if I can get the technology to work. That's me. That's our Hail Zone facility in Birmingham. We have no one here but me. So was that what I was going to do? No. I get the lovely task of talking about green environment. So the sustainability we're talking about is the environmental elements only. Now, we all deal with a certain amount of contaminated land. We deal with brownfield sites. We deal with betterment, improving the environment that we live in. This possibly is why a lot of us are in the industry. When I started doing this many moons ago, my idea was to be the green gorilla, the environmentalist. If anyone remembers Swampy, I am that person. I wanted to be Swampy in a suit, though. I didn't want to be chaining myself to trees, but I did want to have an impact. And I had my brother and sister at the time teasing me about my environmental qualifications, that I was either going to become a geography teacher or I was going to read the weather. But I think I found my niche now. You all may disagree. So we live in exciting times. There is change, there is improvements. We've talked about the technologies that have happened recently, that we can all talk and have meetings online. In certain instances, we're not even going to sites anymore. We can do remote auditing. I bored a number of you a few months ago with that sort of concept. So what am I going to talk about with sustainability? We must be talking about some real cutting edge technologies here, bleeding edge even. Well, no, it's simpler than that. We have no magic bullet. We have to look at hard work. We have to look at endeavor, and we have to go back to basics. So what I'm on about is small things in small ways, bigger things in big ways. So as businesses, we aim to reduce our carbon. We're looking at carbon zero in certain instances, or at least minimizing elements. We reduce our road miles, video conferencing and webinars. We've done a lot in that recently in order to reduce those. The remote auditing, and then technical elements, hybrid vehicles, even electric vehicles. I don't know how anyone else has found it, but I've yet to find a vehicle solution for the site works that doesn't put range anxiety on everyone, that we need to stop and fill up with juice and find a charge point. Reuse, well, there's a limitation to what you can reuse within the asbestos industry as it stands. Certain elements do get reused, but that most of the time causes problems when we have clients who have asked businesses to refurbish their equipment, and the equipment now has asbestos in because they used parts that were sitting on shelves. We can reduce. Yeah, we find other things to take the place of asbestos. But what about recycling? How can we recycle asbestos? At the minute, everyone knows we just go and shove it in the ground and it's filling up the holes that we made from the mining. Well, we got to go back a bit, and I've got here a patent application that was granted in America from 1989. This is the very exciting mineralogical conversion of asbestos waste. It wasn't a massive step in technology. They were just looking at applying an additive and then putting the asbestos into a very hot environment in order to allow it to denature. You drive out all of the water, and then you break down the crystal structure, and you end up with an ash that is able to be reused for something else. So this isn't old technology, but when we're looking at sustainability, this takes a heck of a lot of power. This is not a particularly easy application, and you need some big engineering to make it work effectively. Well, we have someone who's done that. So I got the on the phone the other week, and I'd managed to meet the chief exec of thermal recycling a couple of years back at Yukata Talks, and he has been beavering away building a plant to cook asbestos in a kiln. So their premise started commercially from the fact that 40% of what goes into landfill is in the form of asbestos cement roof sheets. Now, in order to deliver the product to effectively denature asbestos in a hot environment, they had to have a proof of concept. They have to have gain regulatory approval, then ensure that they can actually run it effectively. It's not just going to be a white elephant. It's not just going to be a science project. From that, with all of the business model built, then build the system in order to make it work, commission it, and then scale up. So technology proven. Yes, we can cook asbestos to the point it denatures and the end product is no longer considered to be asbestiform. The plant itself is in Wolverhampton and has been operational now for a year or two. They are fully commercialized. And if I can get my video to work, I will just give you a little taster of what it is like. So there's a lot more information on their website, but what we'll just have a quick look through is some of the elements that they had to get, the hoops that they had to go through. That site is now defined as a waste receiving facility. They are fully registered and they monitor to prove their emissions are effective and that the waste itself is processed effectively. So that's all in place and boxes ticked. Though what Graham was at pains to say is at the minute, they are only able to take cement sheets and flat sheets and guttering where they can be stacked in the kiln in close proximity, and it's only classified for chrysotile asbestos at the minute. Fundraising, they are operational. They have a 6 months order book and they are keen to talk to people, but it is not necessarily going to be a quick process to get rid of a few cement sheets. It's large projects that they're looking at, and they are looking at changing of scale and improvement in throughput, but that's where they're at the minute. All operational, all commissioned. Just look at the process that they have to undertake. They are fully non-licensed working when they're processing the asbestos. They receive it as sheets in larger packets, and then they have to repackage into their own bags in order to then put that through the processing system. The kiln is stacked and then is moved. The main burners are then moved over the top of the stacked materials, and they are then subjected to significant heat in order to denature the material. And this is what the asbestos cement looks like afterwards, which generates a fine ash. Now, in order to look at actually making this slightly more effective, they've been investigating what can happen with the product. So as a treated material, it can be used as an aggregate in roads, and they have recently been investigating and have got signed off for adding it into creating further cement products. So it can act as a 10% constituent part to new asbestos cement. It is quite energy hungry still, and is not necessarily fully circular as an approach to a sustainable business. It is carbon offset, and it is at the minute they're saying that it is mostly in line with disposal in the ground, that they are able to have a funding structure that is not significantly more expensive than disposal to the waste landfill sites in the UK. Another one that I managed to find is the Purified Metal Company. Now, this is a very exciting process, but again, it's not a single application. It's more of a conjoining of other disciplines and processes in order to meet the requirements of the situation with contamination on metal. It's not in the UK. We've got to go all the way off to the Netherlands to find them. And at the minute, though, they're only processing and dealing with stuff there. The owner I spoke to, Natalie, last week, she is very keen to open plants in other environments, other countries, and is in discussions with various bodies in order to take their technology around the world, as this is a process that works locally rather than shipping the materials to them. It should be set up in country. So they're taking contaminated metals, smelting inside a negative pressure environment to generate a product that is of significant worth. So these metal ingots that they produce, PMBs they call them, are purified metal blocks, are very easy to transport, and as pig iron are the source material for the steel industry, which means that we can reduce our mining elements, we can reduce our transport of ore, and we can be less reliant on the mineral-rich countries. Therefore, those countries that have this processing platform within them can start to generate a circular economy and ensure that they ring-fence their resources for the future. In the Netherlands, they have a slightly different setup and approach to environmental matters, as we may understand. They are no longer allowed to put steel into landfill as of the 1st of January this year. It became illegal. They have many further contaminants that they're dealing with within the plant, and asbestos they are gearing up in the next couple of weeks to deal with. The plant is actually going through a shutdown process. They've done all the modeling, and so they will then incorporate different scrubbers and filters that previously had been dealing with mercury, with chromium-6, and with lead in all of the emissions controls, will now be reconfigured so they can deal with asbestos as well. It is very much a circular economy and a target within the Netherlands, so that there will be cost neutral to a certain extent. There will be profit, but also there'll be carbon neutral elements within this too. The hazardous steel, when it's completely processed, can just be shipped around and is a very high quality raw material. Here's just an image of the plant. It is managed under negative pressure because of the other contaminants as well as the asbestos. But this, again, is a process that will deal with part of our waste stream, not deal with everything. One of the other considerations I was talking with one of the colleagues about was other aspects within what we generate and produce as consultancies, as contractors. Coverall recycling was mentioned. There are now platforms, I think it's the Kimtech Apparel Recycling Program, that will take their disposable coveralls. However, they cannot take coveralls that are contaminated, which rather puts the kibosh on what we play with. If someone was to try and prove that their coveralls were not contaminated and just needed to be recycled, then there would be a route out for you to use this sort of program to make better use of your waste. I know we've got a talk now coming from Liz. So this was a whistle-stop tour, but I know these messages are coming from everywhere. We have no planet B. We need to engage and be committed in order to end up with a society and a structure and industry that doesn't keep damaging the environment. And what happens next? It is up to us. Thank you very much. Any questions, but more to the point, any suggestions?
Thank you very much, Ben. I think as always, we try and make sort of like the sessions as sort of like different but related as we possibly can do. And I think, yeah, you're quite right. We're all nowadays, we're getting so used to, green this, green that, recycle and everything else. And I think it is quite right that, we do need to look at recycling within the asbestos sector. And yeah, there have been sort of various sort of trials at it before. And I know the one from Wolverhampton, I've heard them sort of speak before as well. But my understanding was they're quite energy hungry because they take a long time to actually get the temperatures up and keep them up, and there are some other ones out there that are looking at adding catalysts and things like that, so they don't use anywhere near as much energy. But there certainly seems to be a bit bubbling on behind the scenes, but I think the UK probably needs to push it a lot more because it seems to be other countries that are doing it rather than the UK.
It does, and at this point, we have no driver to really force it. With the Netherlands having the no contaminated steel into landfill, their driver is absolute. They have to have a solution, and the plants are there and ready to take up the slack.
Yeah, and I think sometimes
until it becomes cost preclusive, and the waste disposal is of such high cost in comparison to the alternatives, then it won't happen. The catalyst solution you were talking about, it's actually Windsor Waste has got the worldwide patent, which came off the back of that original American patent. And they've just set up in collaboration in a plant in Australia. But Tony hasn't managed to put a plant together in the UK, and he carries on putting the waste in landfill, which is a business model that works.
Yeah, I think sometimes though, some of these things come down to getting the information out there. Back to the whole sharing of knowledge, because there will be quite a few people that are just oblivious or ignorant to it. Whereas, lots of things sort of start from just very sort of small ideas and whatever. And I think if we can, even start to push it that, this is something that could be done. Yeah, it takes a lot to invest in it to start with and whatever. But why shouldn't we have it in the UK if other countries
Too
can
true.
use it?
And yeah, certainly Natalie wants to bring her one here. I'm watching a couple of the comments coming through on the chat, and yeah, absolutely right. It's like Sarah saying about reusing of bulk slides. Can we clean off the slides effectively and just use the glassware again? I see no reason not. They're washed as they're produced in the factories, and in order to be packaged and sent around to us, if we can reuse glassware, why not?